All right, today we're going to get into a perspective that's, well, it's fascinating and, frankly, a little chilling. Our source material gives us this really deep look into the final moments of life and the unseen forces at play. It describes nothing less than the ultimate battle for our soul. Our source kicks things off with this really powerful idea. There's a part of us, a dark side, that can be locked down, sure, but it can never truly be eliminated. It's always there, just waiting. So you have to ask, right? What exactly is this dark side? Well, according to the source, this dark side has a name. It's called the dweller or the shadow self. And this isn't just some metaphor for our bad moods. It's described as something much, much more tangible than that. Now, this is crucial. The source explains that every single time we misuse energy, through addiction, false beliefs, you name it, that energy doesn't just disappear. It builds up, it accumulates, and it actually forms this active, influential presence inside of us. So where does this dweller get its power? Well, here's the wild part. The source claims it actually feeds on the very spiritual energy it has corrupted. This makes it incredibly strong, but its power is described as, well, filthy and unstable. It leaves a stain on the soul. And the consequences of its influence? Total chaos. When that contaminated energy flows through us, it can lead to these outbursts that seem to just come from nowhere. But the source argues they have a very, very clear origin: the dweller. And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, boom, the source adds another layer to this. It says our own inner shadow, our dweller, is actually being manipulated by external dark forces. And these are called the tempters. Okay, so let's take a look at how this whole internal conflict actually plays out in our behavior, especially in those moments of weakness or, indulgence. Come on, we've all heard phrases like this, right? It sounds defiant, full of life, like a final celebration. But our source material takes this common idea and reframes it as something potentially much more sinister. And this is the absolute key question the source poses. What if that urge to just let loose one last time? What if it isn't a genuine expression of your own will? What if it's a whisper coming from somewhere else? These moments, the sudden binges, the overwhelming need to party, the indulgence in things we know are just wrong, they're described as shadow jailbreaks. It's when the dweller literally breaks out of its cage, causing what the source calls temporary insanity. And this brings us to the most critical moment of all. See, the source argues that the final moments of life aren't some peaceful fading away. Nope. They are the location of the most intense spiritual battle we will ever face. I mean, listen to that metaphor. It's so stark, so powerful. It describes these tempters just lining up like vultures, waiting for that one moment of weakness, hoping for one final feast of light before the body completely shuts down. And here's their playbook, apparently. It starts with a simple whisper. Go on, you deserve it. One last time. If the soul gives in, if it surrenders, the tempters drain its light and willpower, leaving it too weak to ascend. This causes it to sink into what the source calls the ghost world. So in the end, the choice becomes incredibly clear, right? One path, fueled by willpower, leads up. The other, this path of indulgence, just drags the soul down. The stakes really couldn't be any higher. Now, you might be thinking this all sounds pretty abstract, but that core conflict, willpower versus indulgence, is connected by the source to a very real, very modern problem, one that it claims makes every single one of us uniquely vulnerable. So the central idea here is that focused concentration isn't just some productivity hack. It's a form of spiritual power. The ability to gather and shape cosmic light, to create anything of real substance, it all hinges entirely on your ability to focus. And according to the source, this is our modern limit, 5 minutes. That's the maximum amount of time many of us can reportedly stay on a single thought before being pulled away by a notification, a message, or just some internal distraction. And this question just cuts right to the heart of the whole thing. If our attention is constantly being shattered into these tiny, 1-minute tasks, what does that mean for our ability to build anything meaningful, either out in the world or within ourselves? And here are the consequences. A fractured focus doesn't just mean we get less done. According to this perspective, it makes us spiritually weak. It makes us easy targets for distraction, for temptation, and ultimately really easy to steer by those very tempters we talked about. So let's bring all these threads together now. We've got the internal dweller, we've got the external tempters, and we've got a modern world that shatters our focus. And all of this leads to one ultimate test. This line, which is spoken by one of the characters in the source, it's devastatingly perfect. After hearing this entire crucial warning about the dangers of a fractured mind, his response is to admit he couldn't even focus long enough to hear it. And that inability to focus, it's not just some minor inconvenience. According to the source, it's the core vulnerability, the open door for all the spiritual dangers that we've just explored. And so the source material leaves us with this really profound question. It suggests that our final moments aren't an ending at all, but a beginning. The state of our focus and the choices we make in that moment will determine the direction of our very first step into eternity.